Okay, so apologise for that disruption. Let's go. Reading with the frost was held at prisoner, nothing grew but moss and furze and coarse rank grass. Down in the west, the setting sun had left a streak of fiery red, which glared upon the desolation for an instant, like a sullen eye, and frowning lower yet, was lost in the thick gloom of darkest night. What place is this? Asked Scrooge. A place where miners live, who labour in the bowels of the earth, returned the spirit. But they know me. See? So what he's done is that the spirit has taken him to this really desolate and awful place. And again, he takes them to three places. And these places are places that are really grim, where you would expect people who are having Christmas to have a really difficult and awful time. But actually what's happening is they're actually having a really nice time because they have Christmas spirit within their heart. A light shone from the window of a hut, and swiftly they advanced towards it. Passing through the wall and mud and stone, they found a cheerful company assembled around a glowing fire, an old man and woman with their children and their children's children, and another generation beyond that, all decked out gaily in their holiday attire. The old man, in a voice that seldom rose above the howling of the wind upon the barren waste, was singing them a Christmas song. It had been a very old song when he was a boy, and from time to time they all joined in the chorus. So surely as they raised their voices, the old man got quite blithe and loud, and so surely as they stopped, his vigour sank again. The spirit did not tarry here, but bade Scrooge hold his robe, and passing on above the moor, sped whither. So what you've got here is you've got an old man, an old miner, but the old miner is with his family and the generations of family. So again, it's reinforcing what he was saying about the Cratchits, in the fact that these people, if they've got their family together and if they are surrounded by love, then they are able to elevate themselves above terrible times and terrible places and to have, a good time. The spirit did not tarry here, but bade Scrooge hold his robe, and passing on above the moor, sped. Whither? Not to the sea. To the sea, to Scrooge's horror. Looking back, he saw the last of the land, a frightful range of rocks behind them. His ears were deafened by the thundering of water, as it rolled and roared and raged among the dreadful caverns it had worn, and fiercely tried to undermine the earth. Built upon a dismal reef of sunken rocks, some league or so from shore, on which the waters chafed and dashed the wild year through, there stood a solitary lighthouse. Great heaps of seaweed clung to its base, and storm birds, born of the wind, one might suppose, the seaweed of the water, rose and fell about it like the waves they skimmed. But even here, two men who watched the light had made a fire, that through the loophole in the thick stone wall shed out a ray of brightness on the awful sea. Joining their horny hands over the rough table at which they sat, they wished each other Merry Christmas in their can of grog, and one of them, the elder too, with his face all damaged and scarred with hard weather, as the figurehead of the old shipmite, struck itself upon a song that was like the gale itself. So again, the second place he takes them to is a lighthouse, where you've got these two people who are far away from their families, and they are at the the top of a cliff, where at the base the sea is really whirling and being really, really wild. And what's happening is at this stage they are still having this spirit of Christmas within them, and so what's really important is that they are singing. And so if you have the spirit of Christmas within you, it will elevate you and it will make you feel so much better and happiness, and it will be something that is spiritually really important. Again, the ghost sped on above the black and heaving sea, on, until, being far away, as he told Scrooge, from any shore they lighted on a ship. They stood beside the helmsman at the wheel, the lookout at the bow, the officers who had the watch, dark ghostly figures in their several stations. But every man among them hummed a Christmas tune, or had a Christmas thought, or spoke below his breath to his companion of some bygone Christmas day, with homeward hopes belonging to it. So you've got these ideas of these men again being lashed by the wind and the rain on the sea, these sailors, and yet they're still not low and sad because of their position. What they are is elevated and happy, because what they have is this idea of Christmas and Christmas time and the Christmas spirit that they have within them. And every man on board, waking or sleeping, good or bad, had had a kinder word for another on that day than on any day of the year, and had shared to some extent in its festivities, and had remembered those he cared for at a distance, and had known that they had delighted to remember him. Okay, so what you've got, these three places: the miner, the lighthouse family, and the sailors. And what they are is they are places that are really quite dreadful, places that are not very nice at all. But the elevation of Christmas spirit within them, links to that idea of doing Christian work and doing God's work and having the idea of Christmas in your heart, the Christian idea of Christmas in your heart, would lead you as a person, as an individual, to feeling hope and warm and, you know, like you have a companion. And that's what the idea of God is, isn't it? It gives you some kind of crutch and something to lean on. So this is what these people have. And again, it's reinforcing the idea that Christianity and the idea of loving Christ and of being a good Christian person will benefit you and benefit the readers very much so. So that's just a little interlude in between speaking to the Cratchits and taking them to the Cratchits. Then he takes them to London and looks at all these lovely places. And then he takes them to these 3 places to reinforce these ideas. And if you're thinking about the ideas and the themes, you can think that, like Scrooge, when he was left alone, when he was at school, he was all by himself. And because he didn't have Christmas in his heart, he had no one to share it with. And that's when you become very isolated. And that's when your heart can become really hard. And then obviously that developed to him being the old Scrooge that we know, that covetous old sinner. However, if you compare this to like the Cratchits, when they're together and they're sharing, and they are, you know, the personification really of the good part of it and the good teachings of Christ that Dickens believed he had a responsibility to do. Okay, so that's just that little homework. And make sure you remember it, and you remember those 3 places.